Okay, so today I want to do a walkthrough with you on setting up this rather unusual office or library style clock that you have. This is a really unusual setup, so we're going to take it right from the first step of delivering it to your house or you picking it up and go from there. So first of all, transporting this clock is a little bit tricky because of the fact that the pendulum is not accessible, so you can't remove the pendulum to transport it. You'll notice that I've got the top of the clock slightly elevated. The reason for that is to keep the pendulum bob from sliding up into the clock when you transport it. So that's one thing you have to be very aware of, is whenever you move this clock, whenever you transport it, always keep the top of the clock slightly elevated, just enough to keep that weight down at the bottom of the clock, the pendulum weight at the bottom of the clock. So, so setting it up, we'll go right from square one. So the first thing we did was, the first thing you'll notice with your clock is that we added a little a bracket on the bottom of the clock, which will secure the bottom of the clock when you hang it on the wall. So what I've done basically is I've measured the distance from the top hanger to the bottom securing hanger, and the measurement there is 21.5 inches. So what I did was I marked it out on my level from the top of the bottom to the bottom for 22.5 inches and made marks. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this level and I'm going to put it up on the wall in the shop here in the checking room, and I'll show you exactly how you're going to do this. So I've already made the place down here, but I'll show you up here for convenience sake how you do it. So you're going to take the level first of all and mark it at the top. That's going to be where your top hole is going to go, and then using the level itself, make sure that it's absolutely level first before you mark the second hole. So just get it in the right spot there, make sure that's right, and then you just mark the second hole down here. So the first hole is going to go up here. And in the case of if you're putting it on drywall, then what you want to do is make sure that you put an anchor in there first of all. So what I've done, because this isn't drywall, I've used a pan head type screw. I'll actually make sure that you get the screws for this as well. I'll supply the screws. So I've used a pan head type screw that's almost tight to the wall here, and the reason for that is because the hanger is going to just slide right into there. And I'll show you how that's done in a second. And I've also got the second hole down here. You can see where the second hole is already made, where I've been testing the clock, had it up and testing. And so I marked the second one and drilled it, and there we go. So let's go get the clock from the other room and we'll hang it up, and I'll show you how to secure it on the wall first of all. Again, remember that with this clock, it's very fragile, and you really have to be careful whenever you're moving it because you can't take the pendulum off it. So we're going to keep the clock with the top of it elevated at all times when we're moving it, but on an angle so that the pendulum will rest against the back of the clock until we get it on the wall. Alright, so hang it where we had it there very carefully. You'll notice that the reason why it's so close is because it actually keeps the clock flush to the wall, so there's no movement there. And now I'm going to get the other screw that I used to secure the bottom, and we'll just secure that right now. So you just line this up with the mark that you've already got there, and then secure this before you open up the clock or do anything else with it. Okay, so that's secured enough that now the clock will not move on the wall whatsoever, and that's what we want to achieve. Okay, and I'm just going to grab a key and we'll go over winding it and setting it for you. As far as getting the clock started now, if the clock hasn't already started up on its own, the pendulum hasn't started swinging, you can just gently reach in here and give the pendulum a little bit of a swing. I don't know if you can see that with the camera or not up underneath there. Let me get a picture of that. Yep, that's good. You can see the pendulum swinging. So you saw how I just reached my hand up inside and gave it a little bit of a swing. Make sure that the clock is ticking nice and evenly. That's going to be an indication that you've got it set up level. There shouldn't be any rubbing sounds or anything coming from it. It's a pretty loud ticker, so you can probably hear it pretty easily. And I'm just going to grab a key. I'll be right back. Okay, so winding and setting the clock once a week. You need to wind it. You can wind it as often as you like, but at the minimum of once a week. Let's see if I got the right key here or not. So the nice thing now about having the clock secure on the wall is you can obviously lift up the front of the clock, the glass, and get access to winding and setting it without having to worry about it moving around. So winding the clock is done once a week until, and it's counterclockwise on this one, until the clock is fully wound. And you notice how I'm winding it, I can actually get it to the point where it won't go any further and the key rebounds in my hand. So you won't do any damage to the clock with winding it. You'll probably have to wind it more than that, obviously, once a week. I just wound it a day or two ago during the checking process and regulating process. So don't be afraid to wind it up tight. Once you've got it wound up, get yourself an accurate timekeeper. Again, the actual time now is 10:55. Setting the time on this, just be very careful with these hands. Set them either forwards or backwards. There's no strike mechanism on this clock, so you don't have to worry about stopping at the 12 or the 6 or anything like that. Set it on the right time, close the lid, and just make sure that you're locked down there. Actually, it'll just sit against there gently because of the way that the dial is located on this one. And that should be it. Basically, timekeeping on these clocks, generally from the factory when these clocks were made, they were designed to keep somewhere around a minute a day. So you will have to reset it, depending on how accurate you want this particular clock to be. You can either set it once a week when you wind it, or you can set it whenever you like if you notice that it's drifted off time. But allow for the fact that it's not a brand new clock. It's an older clock, and just like an older car, you have to treat it differently than a new one. It's going to be a different type of timekeeping altogether. And I hope that's good. If you have any other questions, please feel free to call us or email us, text us, whatever, and we're happy to walk you through any questions you might have about the clock.